Hey guys, what's up? It's the Tominator. So I've been seeing a lot of negative comments online about the lighting at last weekend's California Pro, and deservedly so because it was crap. In fact, it was so bad, and the coverage was so poor for that event, that I decided it wasn't even worth reviewing. No disrespect to the competitors because Antoine looked fantastic and I would have liked to have covered it, but the photo and video quality simply wasn't good enough to make any sort of meaningful analysis. But anyway, it's good to see that a lot of people are finally cluing into this. I've been talking about it for a couple years now and have mentioned in past videos that the IFBB and these contest organizers need to get their act together and start showing off their product better. Because that's what this is, right? The IFBB is a business at the end of the day, and the bodybuilders are the product that they're selling. As an analogy, imagine if you went into a clothing store and it was so dimly lit you could barely see the merchandise. Sure, you can tell that they sell clothes here. There's a rack of pants over there, there's some shirts on the back wall, there's a mannequin modeling an outfit, but all you get are vague impressions. You can't see the textures, you can't really make out patterns or colors in any detail. You might not even be able to tell if those are blue jeans or black jeans. First of all, you're probably not even going to go into a place like this because that's just not very inviting. It's kind of creepy and off-putting. But second of all, the store owners are effectively shooting themselves in the foot because not as many people are going to be buying their product if it's not presented well. Customers won't be able to make informed decisions if they can't even see the items under proper lighting, and the business is ultimately going to suffer. With bodybuilding, it's actually even worse because this sport, if you want to call it that, is pretty much 100% visual. No other sport that I know of requires such a high degree of visual fidelity, since without crystal clear photos or video, the fans can't discern the finer details of conditioning that are so often the deciding factor between winning and losing. It's like you can watch basketball or football or baseball in blurry 240p and still be able to fully follow the game. It wouldn't be ideal, but you wouldn't really miss anything essential. In bodybuilding, the difference between 240 and 1080p is night and day, to the point that you might as well not even bother watching if it's the former. And I don't think when HD technology has been around for, 20 years now, that it's too much to ask that all the current pro contests be filmed in high definition. Frankly, it should mostly be in 4K by now, but hey, one step at a time. We know the IFBB Pro League is run by a bunch of dinosaurs, so we shouldn't get our hopes up too much. But anyway, I wanted to make this video to point out an important part of the equation that no one ever seems to mention, and this is that it's not just the shitty stage lighting to blame. It's the camera source as well, guys. Now, I'm no expert in photography, so I can't speak in technical terms or get too specific as to what exactly makes or breaks the experience. But as someone who's reviewed a few dozen contests and pored over literally thousands of bodybuilding photos over the years, I can tell you that the camera source has a dramatic impact on how the bodybuilders appear. You may have been wondering about these photos I've been talking over so far. Well, believe it or not, they were all taken from the same contest. It's the same lineup, the same background. That's the top 4 from the 2018 Olympia prejudging. So obviously, it's under the same exact lighting, yet they look markedly different depending on the media outlet. So these ones from Team Andro are a bit darker and a lot more blue looking, and I'd say a lower contrast level even, whereas Muscular Development's photos look brighter and more saturated with warmer color tones. Personally, I prefer the ones from MD, although Team Andro's are technically higher resolution. Here's a close-up pic of Phil's back double biceps from Team Andro again. And it looks good. You can pick out lots of details for sure, but this is one I took myself on my smartphone from the stands. And even though it's just a zoomed-in photo of the Jumbotron, in my opinion, it somehow looks better than most of the professionally shot pictures. The colors are way more vivid, it's brighter, and you can really appreciate the 3D effect of the layers of dense muscle packed onto that back, in a way that just doesn't come through in the official source. Here's another example from the '96 German Grand Prix, with Dorian Yates looking utterly godlike. But notice how when it switches to the second camera that's closer to the stage and shooting from a lower angle, he suddenly doesn't look as amazing. Now, don't get me wrong, he looks great still. He's peeled to the bone either way. But for some reason, it doesn't look as out of this world as the more panned out view. Now, it's possible these cameras had different settings or filters or whatnot, and maybe that's what accounts for the difference. But it might also be the case that simply shooting it from a different distance from the stage, in a different physical location, also has an effect. Again, I'm not a photographer, so I'm not sure about that, but it's just something interesting I noticed while watching this vintage footage. Here's another contest with some legendary lighting, the 1999 British Grand Prix, featuring Kevin Levrone. The lighting was so unique at this show because it looked dark as fuck for the most part, but where the lights actually hit them, it was extremely bright. It's almost like they were shining a spotlight down on the competitors. And this really created a great contrast and highlighted the contours of their physiques spectacularly. But again, it looks significantly different depending on the footage. This first view is the more common one. It's what I remember seeing way back in the early 2000s when I first got into bodybuilding. You could find this clip floating around online before YouTube was even a thing. And so it's no surprise the quality isn't great, but it still looks epic, and I'm sure it's been burned into many bodybuilding fans' brains over the years. Compare that to this footage, however, which is higher res, yet somehow not as visually impressive. It just looks more muted and flat for some reason. Again, like the Dorian clip, Levrone still looks great here, of course, but it loses some of its wow factor in my opinion. He suddenly doesn't look so, cartoonish as he did before, and you've got to chalk up that to the camera being used and not the actual venue lighting itself, because it's the same posing routine in both clips after all. Anyway, these are just a few examples off the top of my head. There's many others. Go check out the 2011 Arnold Classic and compare the pics versus the video. It's night and day. I remember looking at the pictures thinking Branch Warren should have been lucky to receive third, but then when you watch the high quality video, the edge he had in conditioning became so apparent, his victory there made a lot more sense to me after watching that. So again, same contest, but a radically different perception depending on which source you viewed. Alright, so hopefully you guys get the point I'm trying to make here. We keep blaming the IFBB and the contest organizers for not knowing how to light a stage, but we tend to forget that what we see is always filtered through a camera lens. So the media companies who provide the coverage we watch are equally culpable here. This is why people continue to make that annoying argument that you have to be there, it's different in person. Okay, well, I'm sorry, but that's a lame-ass excuse to still be making in 2020. I'm not saying it's not true, because sadly it is, but that's precisely the problem. You shouldn't need to be sitting 3 feet behind the judges in order to get an accurate sense of what the competitors really looked like. Not when HD and even 4K have been available for many years. So the way I see it, that's a total cop-out, and you're essentially defending incompetence. Collectively, all the parties involved need to do a better job and should really focus on making the bodybuilders look their absolute best, not their worst. Why is it that Mr. Olympia contenders across the board tend to look better in progress pics leading up to the show, and then look like crap by comparison as soon as they step on stage? That's completely backwards, man. It does a disservice to them, to us, and to bodybuilding at large. Okay, well, that's all I got for this one. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to click that like button and subscribe for more if you enjoyed. But until next time, this has been the Tominator signing off, and I'll be back.